Today, I want to thank the walkers, first of all, marching down to Washington. Raise your hand if you're walking. You're doing the hard work. I look forward to feeding you breakfast in Baltimore and seeing you along the way. Because you know you're going to face a lot of obstacles. You're going to face unpredictable weather, aching limbs, probably some blisters, maybe some catcalls from skeptics. And probably the biggest obstacle is going to be media distortion and public apathy. That's why you're marching. We have to change the mindset of this country. So I want to let you know that we thank you for doing that. You're doing the hard work. Hopefully you'll get some cheers and thank yous. You know you have the thank yous of over 120 endorsing organizations on you. You have the thank you of millions of Americans that want a democracy that we can be proud of. And thank you for trying to make history. This is a good place to talk about history. Right behind me is a little bit of history. Ben Franklin knew that making democracy was not going to be easy. At the end of the Constitutional Convention, right by that building, supposedly a woman shouted out to him, "Dr. Franklin, what will we have? A republic or a monarchy?" You know what he answered? A republic, if you can keep it.
Now you lost audio again?
If you can keep it. So the question is still before us. Are we going to be able to keep a democracy? Or have we already sold it off to a monarchy of money? No! It's not a perfect democracy, never has been. We know that it never operated perfectly, probably because of money at the root of things. The American Revolution ushered in a compromised democracy that enslaved Africans, that slaughtered Native Americans, all for the quest to profit. And that's still happening today. All of those people, unwilling victims to the feverish scramble for profits. The Civil War ended chattel slavery, but it just replaced it with another form of economic exploitation. And that goes on in our country. Constantly, the people who own the power in the Gilded Age, when money ruled, they didn't even make an excuse for why money equals power in this country. Mark Hanna, who was a political kingmaker, said there are two things important in politics. One is money, and the second one I can't remember what it is. It's always been money. Now the progressives pushed back against that. Teddy Roosevelt and others prohibited bankers from giving directly to candidates for national office. The 17th Amendment was passed, which handed back to the people the ability to vote for your senators, as opposed to corrupt legislatures that were easily bribed. But so often, power creeps back into things, taking back power, disguised as civic virtue and patriotism. In my lifetime, it was Watergate that taught me the importance of money in politics. The committee to re-elect the president, nicknamed CREEP, sucked up cash like there was no tomorrow. So we passed more reforms, and the Federal Elections Campaign Commission was created. But the day that that commission started to work, moneyed interests started to roll back those regulations. And it led to a case in the 70s of Buckley versus Vallejo, where the Supreme Court said that you can't stop spending money because money is speech. And that paved the way to the most anti-democratic ruling in the United States, Citizens United. That's why we need you marchers today. That's why we all have to support Democracy Spring. And we have to demand that Congress takes concrete steps to get money out of politics and ensure free and fair elections for all people, where every one of us has an equal voice. In the tradition of nonviolence, you're marching down to Washington to demand any number of legislative solutions to the problem of money in politics. Any sort. You can take your pick. You can pick Alabama's Representative Sewell's Voting Rights Amendment, empowering the Attorney General to put officials at polling places and monitor states that change their voting laws. Or you could pass Senator Sarbanes' Government by the People Act, which gives every voter $25 small contribution to counteract big money. Or Senator Durbin's Free Elections Act now, or Representative Deutsch's Democracy for All Act, which simply asks for reasonable limits on campaign spending. That's the minimum we can ask for. Or how about just letting state legislatures explain why corporations are not people? Yeah. So who could be against government by the people, voting rights, democracy for all, and fair elections now? Well, we know the answer. People that have a little bit too much to lose. Those who own an inordinate amount of this country's wealth, who know that a vibrant democracy might ask them to share. That's what democracy can do. It can ask people to share and demand that they treat the democracy like it was. So a real democracy with voting rights protection, campaign reform, anti-corruption measures, citizens' elections, constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United might, just might, loosen the stranglehold on power in this. In a system where 95% of incumbents are re-elected, we have to hold our elected officials responsible for changing the system so true democracy comes back, right? So can't we ask our elected officials to respect democracy, to have a political system where the inherent worth of every individual is respected, where the vote of each citizen matters more than money? Democracy is not just a system of voting. It is a way of life that respects each individual, and that way of life is in danger now. It needs all the marchers today, so we thank you again. It needs all of you here. But it needs more than all of us here. It needs people who aren't here. So tell your neighbors, tell your relatives, tell the people in your life. The march that begins today has to continue in all shapes and sizes, in all cities across this country, not just today, but tomorrow, next year, and the next decades. So thank you for walking towards a more perfect democracy. Thank you for keeping the American democratic dream alive. Good luck.